Indian Tax discussed how the U.S. tax system came to be and how it has been modified through history. The tax code as we know it today is comprised of thousands of pages. The film argued that the code has become too complicated to the point that even the IRS doesn't fully understand it. The film introduced 5 different proposals to reform the tax code, 3 of which were consumption-based tax systems: the fair tax, the progressive consumption tax, and the value-added tax. Each works similarly in that under these systems there would be no income tax. Instead, there is a federal retail sales tax on the amount of an individual's consumption. As a group, we discussed the pros and cons of switching to a consumption-based tax system.
We'll first talk about the pros for consumption tax. We have 5 listed here, and I will cover the first 2. The first one is simplicity. With the implementation of a consumption tax, the process for filing individual tax returns will be eliminated. There will be no exemptions and deductions to keep track of. Therefore, there will be no need to keep record for receipts and capital gains of sale of an asset. And then the second one is incentive to save. Since consumption is earned income minus savings, this implies an incentive to save more than what people save today.
Under the fair tax and the progressive consumption tax, there are mechanisms that prevent necessities from being taxed. So this would help protect the poor from being taxed on things they need to survive. Another pro is that businesses pass taxes to consumers. So what this does is when a business pays tax for raw materials or components of building any products or goods, they pay tax on that, they pass that tax on, and only the value added or the margin gets taxed. Last pro, the tax revenue from illegal activities. This would help tax illegal immigrants or illegal businesses like the sale of drugs get taxed and have the government collect taxes on that.
A bad thing about this way of taxing is that implementing this idea would be very difficult due to ignorance. People will feel as if they are being cheated out of exemptions and deductions, as if they are being taxed even more, when in reality they are just being taxed in a different way. Another negative aspect of this consumption taxing is the heavier burden on the middle class. Because the middle class spends a higher percent of their income, they are paying a higher tax ratio, whereas the higher class are able to save more, and that savings isn't taxed. Their tax to income ratio is smaller.
There is another con to the consumption tax. It provides no incentives for consumption or production. A consumption tax is composed of a variety of taxes. One example is the value-added tax. This tax is imposed on the business in order to make the product, and the business is going to try to cover that cost by raising their prices in order to cover it. So indirectly, when the consumer purchases this product, they're going to indirectly pay this VAT tax as well. It's a form of double taxation. In the eyes of the government, it would not be good, because as business production and consumer purchases decrease, the total taxes collected decrease. If the business production remains constant but the consumer purchases decrease, the total tax decreases. And the same would be true as if the business production decreases but the consumer purchases remain the same. Another problem with the consumption tax is that since it has like a double taxation effect and there are direct decreases, if one thing decreases, in order for the government to even have money to fund operations, they'll have to adjust their tax rates to make up for that loss of revenues, either by increasing it or decreasing it.
Do you feel that the current tax code needs to be reformed? If so, based on the information that we provided, do you think that a consumption-based tax system is a good alternative?
Alright, start over real quick. I can't.
Taxing is that it would be very difficult due to ignorance.
The consumption tax is that it provides total tax collected will be reduced. As business production remains constant but your total purchases go down, your total sales revenue.
Go.
Do you feel that the current tax code needs to be reformed? If so,
I don't even remember what I'm. Do you feel that the current tax rate